What is going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders. I am very grateful to have your attention, at least for the next 15 minutes of this episode. Forward Thinking Founders is a podcast where I interview pre-seed and seed stage founders about their products, what they want to build into the world, and why. We dive into how they spend their time, what's their vision, what's their origin stories, all these things, so you can learn all about what's coming tomorrow. Because these companies haven't hit critical scale yet. Most of them haven't hit product market fit. These are just early stage companies, and the big question is, what can this be? And in this podcast, we bring that out. So with that, I really hope you enjoy your time listening to today's episode. And I've already done 200 plus, so if you like this one, listen to some of the other ones, like with Amadi Kund, Austin Allred, Leah Culver. We have great interviews, so check it out, enjoy the repository, and for now, let's get into today's episode. Here we go. All right. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders, where we talk to founders about their companies, their visions for the future, and how to collide. Today, we have a two-time guest on the podcast, Oscar Pedroso, founder of Thimble. How is it going? Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here. Yeah, just trying to make things happen.
Yeah, being a founder, juggling 5 million things at once, fundraising, growth, support, everything that it takes to kind of to be a founder. Well, I'm excited to have you back on the podcast. So to give a little context for people listening, you probably came on, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe a little less, give or take a few months. But you made awesome amount of progress since. I wanted to bring you back on so we can kind of learn more about Thimble, give everyone a reminder, and kind of dive a little deeper into your story. So to give everyone a reminder, what are you working on? What is Thimble?
So Thimble's an education tech business based in New York, and we make a coding and robotics curriculum that's implemented in K-12 schools, grades 5 through 12, and we're teaching kids how to build their own robots and learn about other skills that are in high demand in today's job market.
Okay, well, let's start there at the tail end of your answer. Help kids learn about skills that are in demand. I'm kind of curious, like, how do you decide what goes into these boxes, or like what's in demand? How do you keep up with the times? I'm just curious, how do you know what to put in these boxes?
Well, a lot of the inspiration for the kits come from our own team of interns and employees. We all sit around a table once a quarter and we talk about what we wish we had when we were engineering students in high school and in college. And if it's college, I like those more than anything else because we try to introduce those a lot sooner into the curriculum in middle school and high school. So more often than not, these middle school and high school kids are learning on college level type material.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the idea of kind of prepping young people with knowledge, that maybe not everyone is getting, but if you're able to be lucky enough to be exposed to a Thimble box, right, or a school or a system that's a customer of yours, they get that exposure, which is super exciting. And that kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, I really want to dive into just kind of how this works if someone's listening, as a potential customer or student, like how they can get involved. I guess my first question is, do you sell straight to the student? Do you go through districts, through schools? I mean, if I'm a student, if I'm a high schooler or middle schooler, how do I get my hands on one of these boxes?
So it's available for both parents and schools. As a startup, we've been all over the place trying to find our niche, and we launched the business as a direct-to-consumer model. So it was strictly a monthly subscription for parents. So you get one of these kits delivered in the mail once a month, and then you log on to our lesson library to build it. For schools, it's a little different. We sell the same exact product, but we include professional training for teachers, since we know not all teachers went to school for coding and robotics, and they're the ones that need the most help to implement this. It's not uncommon to hear a teacher say the kids know more than they do. And so a lot of what we have in our program is to make sure they're upskilled as well. So they're not, they don't feel completely uncomfortable when they're teaching this in the class.
So you mentioned there that when you launched, you were D2C and you found other channels. I'm kind of curious to hear about your experience kind of going through that process, I mean, how would you know that you needed to expand channels after you launched? And I just walk you through the learning, the distribution learnings that you've gone through since you kind of got started with Thimble.
So we started off with direct to consumer because that's what we initially had in mind. We thought that selling to schools was going to be a long battle, and we decided to put that on the back burner. Until about 2018, we got our very first school purchase, and it was around a $50,000 purchase. And all of us on the team were like, "Wow, like that's like more than a month's worth of monthly recurring revenue at the time." And so we started to entertain the idea of selling into more schools, except we decided we would do it locally. Just go after any schools in our own backyard that we thought we could partner with. That way it was just the proximity, just getting that feedback and being able to deliver something on the fly if there was something missing. So we used it as like a way to just learn as much as we could before going out there and selling aggressively, which is what we're doing now.
And I'm kind of curious, going back to the experience of using a kit. I guess for if I was a parent, and I guess what are the goals for a parent if they were to kind of buy a kit for their kid on a recurring subscription? Is it to help them learn different skills, get them exposure to technologies? Like, what are the various reasons why your D2C channel kind of exists and why they can kind of are a customer segment?
Yeah, a lot of time we hear from moms and dads who just, if they have more than one kid, they know that one particular kid who's gravitating towards science and technology, like the mini engineer in the family. And so when they reach out to us, they either subscribe directly or they're just curious what the curriculum looks like. They're starting with the basics. So it's meant to be more of something that complements their current interest in school, especially if they're part of a club or a robotics program or a team. The parents are just wanting to make sure they have that, upper hand in whatever they're doing, just so that they're constantly learning. A lot of times they're not learning enough in school, and so the parents use Thimble as a way to just accelerate what their sons or daughters are learning, so that they're just keenly more aware and can take part in whatever other programs are in middle school and high school down the line.
And going to higher level, I mean, as you've been building Thimble, what have been some lessons that you've learned a high level about running a startup, starting a startup, and then kind of scaling it up a little bit? What have you learned along the way?
Oh my gosh, so much. I think you learn a lot when you're in the how they call it a roller coaster, right? I think all the low points are probably when you learn the most, but it's not till after the fact when you're like, oh wow, 6 months ago we were in a really dark hole, but here's what we took out of that. I would say going after two business models at the same time was one of our biggest challenges. We always kind of wavered back and forth, and it made us look inconsistent. And it's not that we couldn't do both D2C and B2B well. It's just it's hard to do both because you have limited resources allocated for either one. And if you're doing more, then you're sometimes biting off more than you can chew. And for a while we were doing that, and finally we just put our stake in the ground and we're like, we're just going to go after schools. Our D2C channel is still alive, but we're just very careful on, that's sort of like on autopilot technically. And we'll in the future at some point dedicate more to building that. But right now where we're seeing an increase in business is on the school side, and that's what we're going to go after. I would say that, and then also, choosing who you work with. Team members early on, whether they're co-founders or not. We worked with people, a couple of people who just weren't a good fit, and I always told myself it'd be good for the business to work with people who are opposite you, but I've kind of come around on that, and I just think if you don't like working with somebody, just end it and just find the people that you do want to work with.
And what do you kind of see as exciting trends going on in the education industry? It can be within your segment, or it could be just kind of overall in ed tech. Are there waves or things that are happening that excite you that kind of in your own backyard, in your own industry?
Yeah, it's a special moment right now in education because we're, still in the midst of a pandemic, hopefully on the tail end of that. But I think being out of school for so long and seeing the number of months that kids were without certain programming, not just tech education, but even just down to the basic skills like literacy and math. It's become very clear that public schools don't have the modern training tools or curriculum to get kids, the proper skills needed for current century positions or internships or whatnot. I recently discovered that only 45% of public schools have robust computer science and robotics programs. So that's, less than half the schools in the US, which should give you an idea of just, how bad some of these programs are that they just don't exist at some of these schools. And really the students are the one that end up suffering the most, and then the teachers.
And obviously you are, building this company to help, kind of rise to the opportunity and solve some of these problems. And what's exciting is, I believe, there's actually opportunity to get involved with Thimble and kind of help out. So tell me a little bit about kind of your process of raising capital. Are you doing anything interesting there? Yeah, but let's just dive deeper into your capital raising strategy and how you're kind of spreading the word to potential evangelists.
Yeah, definitely. We initially got started on Kickstarter. We had a $300,000 campaign on there when we first launched back in 2017. And then we've come full circle on that journey. We're actually launching a crowdfunding campaign on Republic, which allows accredited and unaccredited investors to invest in our business. So we're raising a round on there. We just started we just launched it about a month ago officially, and we're about almost 20% of the way there. And then we're also doing a round on the side to basically build momentum off of the current Republic campaign, since not all investors invest on Republic. So we're also trying to be flexible and have a round for any angels or seed funds that are interested.
So for people that aren't familiar with Republic and maybe they want to invest $100, $1,000, but they haven't done that before, can you kind of describe what Republic is? And if someone literally wanted to invest in you, like, is it true they could actually invest, and just how does that work for people that aren't familiar?
Yeah, my mom invested and I've also had my own investors invest in the campaign. And you're right, they can invest as little as $100 all the way up to $100,000. And it's a short-term campaign, so it's 120 days I have to raise these funds. Max is 1 million that I can raise. I can raise more than that, but I'd have to file more paperwork with the SEC, which is I'm not going to do that. But it's all regulated by the SEC, so there's a lot of work that goes into launching the campaign. And then during the campaign, it's very similar to a Kickstarter in the sense that you want to keep your community updated. There's a peak in the beginning, and then plateaus for a little bit, and then there's a little bit of a peak again towards the end as the campaign closes. So there's a lot of day-to-day work that goes along with that. But we generally launched it for our initial customer base, who were our initial Kickstarter backers. And so they were really the ones who helped us fuel the first, 100K of the campaign.
And just to close kind of that loop, if someone wanted to, invest after hearing this conversation, specifically, where can they just find you on Republic? Is it just their homepage or their URL? How can they find you?
Yeah, you can search for us on Republic. Just hit just type in Thimble in the search bar. You can also just go to republic.co/Thimble, and that'll take you to our campaign page.
Cool. And then on a higher level, to kind of to close this out, if someone wanted to learn more about Thimble as a whole, as a potential customer, as a potential, partner, things like that, how can they find you online? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to our site at thimble.io. They can search for me on LinkedIn. I'm Oscar Pedroso. They can also send me an email at oscar@thimble.io.
All right. Well, I'm so excited to hear about the progress that you've made since you last came on the podcast, and it's great to catch up. And I'm looking forward to doing another one of these in a year or two to see how much farther you've come.
Definitely, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too.